Good afternoon, at least it is in Japan. I'm assuming some of you are up very early in the morning and some of you are probably up quite late in the evening. But that's the nature of these kind of events. This is the first time that we have done such an event for the International Naginata Federation. Just to give you a brief introduction of what we're going to be doing. I've made a slight change in plan. We're not going to do a lecture today. Okay, we're going to go straight into the practical side of things with Kimura Sensei and her assistants. But we're going to do this 3 times. Okay, today's the first one and we're just doing very, very basic stuff. Chakuso, reigi, saho, bogu, how to put it on, etc., etc. So the next one, number 2, will be on the 11th of October. It will be Shikake Oji. And on the third one will be on the 15th of November. And that will be kata. Okay, so we've sort of divided it up into easy to follow sort of format that we can dedicate enough time to each one rather than trying to rush through it. Okay, and I'll choose one of those days to do a lecture as well if you're interested, but I won't do that today. So before we start properly, I just have a message from Hashimoto Sensei, the president of the International Naginata Federation.
皆様こんにちは。今年は思いがけないコロナウイルスのためにセミナーももちろん理事会もできなくて、こういう形のセミナーになりましたが、このセミナーを通して皆様がまたNaginataのことを一生懸命頑張ってくださることを期待しております。どうぞ皆さんお元気でお過ごしくださいませ。
So what Hashimoto Kaicho said was, unfortunately, as the world is engulfed in this corona or COVID-19 pandemic, we're unable to conduct our usual activities. Normally, we would have an annual seminar overseas, but we can't do that. But nevertheless, make the most of the situation that we find ourselves in and hope that you get something out of these online trainings and wish you all the best of luck and look forward to the day when we can actually get to see each other again. So that was Hashimoto Sensei. Now I'm going to introduce Kimura Yasuko Sensei, who really doesn't need any introduction. And she's going to be taking you from now through some very basic lessons.
Konnichiwa.
G'day.
今年は、セミナーをこの兵庫県伊丹市にある修部館で行います。
So today's seminar, we are conducting it in this dojo, which is known as the Shubukan, which is in Itami City in Hyogo Prefecture. I think many of you have probably been here before.
今日は、門間さんと清水さんにアシスタントお願いして行います。
So we've asked Kadoma-san and Kiyomizu-san, the 2 ladies to Kimura Sensei's left, to assist us with the as models today.
皆さんご自分たちのところでも Zoom の、レッスンを行っていらっしゃると思いますが、今日は、基本について、細かく説明をしていきたいと思います。
I understand that many of you around the world are already conducting lessons via Zoom, so it's not new to you. What we're going to do today is really get into the nuts and bolts, the fine points of Kihon.
よろしくお願いします。
So let's try our best.
今私たちが行っていますNaginataはこの竹でできている、試合用というか演技用のNaginataとこの全部カシの木でできている、演技全日本の型用のNaginataの2種類があります。
So as you know, we have 2 types of Naginata that we utilize in our training. One is the Shiai Naginata, which is a wooden shaft with a bamboo blade. And of course we have the Zen Nihon Kata, which is made out of oak.
で今日はこちらの試合用のナギナタを使いますので、その名称について説明をさせていただきます。
So we're only going to use the Shiai Yo Naginata today, so we'll just start by a review. I mean, everybody knows this stuff, but we're just going to go over it again just to refresh your memories of what the parts are.
ここがハブですよね。で、ここにタンポがついて切っ先からハブの刃、峰がこの横にあるしのぎで、切っ先から15から20センチの5センチの部分の物打ちから、ここが先端巻きで、少しカーブをしているところに反りがあります。
Okay, so the section, of course, is the blade or the habu, which you have on the end, a little tampo, which represents the kisaki, the tip. Okay, you have the sendan maki down here. On the side is called the shinogi. The top is called the mine. And about this far down from the kisaki, this area here, is the monouchi. So this is the blade.
で、ここがごめんなさい。エブで、と石突きですね。で、重さが 650g 以上、長さが2メーター10から25ということになっています。
So the of course, the weight must be over 650 grams, and the length from 210 centimeters to 220 centimeters, so 2.1 to 2.2 meters.
で、このナギナタは、このタンポをこの黄色い紐をつると言いますが、これで、留めてあります。
And you'll see on the end there's a little yellow string, okay, which is called the tsuru. Okay, and the tsuru is what keeps it in its place.
で、打突するときにここが面金と擦れるとこのつるが切れやすくなります。そのためにこのビニールテープで、このつるの補強をしています。
And you'll also notice wrapped over the tsuru is some tape. You might be able to see it glistening there. And the reason why they have that on there is because when you strike man, sometimes the tsuru will clash with the mengane and it will wear through or break. So we put the tape over that to add an extra layer of protection.
で、これはこのタンポと竹の葉の部分を留めてるんではなくて、このつるの補強でしているということをよく理解しておいてください。
So the point that I want to make here is we don't put the tape on the kisaki and the bamboo for the purpose of taping the tampo down. The purpose for the tape is to protect the tsuru.
これが飛んでしまうと、この竹の葉はこう開いてしまいます。そうすると面金から中へ入って葉を傷つけますので、ここはいつも稽古の最初と最後に点検するのを忘れないようにしてください。
So if this tsuru was to break, the tampo would go flying, which means that the two slats of the ha would be exposed and possibly could go into the mengane and injure your partner, which of course we do not want. So it's very important part of your naginata practice to make sure that the tsuru is always in good condition at the end of training. You must check this.
で、この刃の部分は竹でできているので、ささくれたり割れたり欠けたりしますので、ここもいつも注意をしましょう。
Also, please take care to make sure that you look and check the condition of the ha. Of course, it's made from bamboo, so it is prone to splintering and sometimes can split. So again, for safety reasons, make sure that you check that it is in good condition, usable condition.
で、先端巻きは白いテープで、17センチ、合わさりが15センチで、テープは17センチ。これをしっかり守ってください。スケールで大会の折にはチェックします。
Okay, and the sendan maki white insulation tape is 17 centimeters. So the actual connection of the blade over the air makes a 15 centimeters, and there's an extra 1 centimeter on each side, which holds it all in place.
で、今度絵についている石突きの担保も同じくですね。この担保が飛んでいくと危ないので、絵と担保をこのビニールテープで補強しています。
And of course, on the Ishizuki side, we also have another tampo, okay, which is secured with tape, again to prevent it from falling off and making or exposing a dangerous part of the naginata.
このナギナタの絵、それからさっきお見せしました旗のナギナタもカシの木でできています。で、やはり今乾燥が甘いのですぐ曲がりやすくなっていますので、保存するというか使わないときに平らなところに置くようにしてください。
So the air for the Shiai Naginata and also for the Zen Nihon kata is made out of oak, usually oak. Depending on the humidity of the environment that you are in, when it dries out, it warps very easily. Okay, especially the stuff that you buy these days. So when you're not using it, please be sure to store it in a place that is flat. Okay, not hanging it up or leaning it on something because it will gradually bend out of shape. So keep it in a place where it's going to retain its shape, its form.
で、お稽古で使った後は今きっとコロナで皆さん、用具はきれいに拭いてしまってられると思いますが、これからもずっとこの用具を拭くという習慣をつけてください。で、時々椿油とかアマニ油をちょっとつけて、置いておくと、ナギナタ自体の目が詰まってきて曲がりにくくもなりますし、いいナギナタになっていきます。
Okay, perhaps many of you have never done this before or never been told to do it, but now with COVID, people are taking a lot more care about hygiene, of course, and perhaps you are, after each training, you are wiping your naginata down to sterilize it. That's a good practice to get into anyway, and will ensure that your naginata lasts longer and gets into an even better condition. So after training, every training, make sure you clean it, wipe it down, and sometimes perhaps add a layer of oil or something just as a coat of protection. And you'll find that it will, by doing this, looking after your naginata like this, will allow it to last a lot longer as well.
で、ナギナタを持ち運ぶときはいつも袋に入れてください。裸のまんま持って歩かないようにしましょう。
And when you are transporting your naginata, be sure to put it in a bag. Don't carry your naginata around naked, is the word that sounds used. That's the naginata being naked, not you, of course. Okay, but put it in a bag.
それではこれからナギナタの構えから入っていきます。
So now we're going to get into the practical.
まず受け渡しをします。
Before we do that, one more thing. How do you hand the naginata over? How do you pass it?
こちらが選手で、ナギナタの自分のナギナタが折れてしまったので、監督が受け渡しをします。
Just say Kiyomizu-san is a player, and in the shiai, her naginata broke, so the kantoku is handing her another naginata. This is how you would do it.
もしかこれが折れたナギナタとしたら選手が監督に折れたナギナタを渡します。
Or if the player is handing the broken naginata to the kantoku, this is how you do it.
このように、きれいに受け渡しをしてください。
Okay, so again, it's a simple thing, passing the Naginata over, but make sure you do it properly.
ではこれから、構えについて行います。まず礼法、はい、礼法をします。はい、礼。正面の礼を行います。これは相手に対して、深くお辞儀をします。はい、礼。今度はお互い選手同士の礼をします。はい、礼。
This is bowing to each other.
もう一度最初の深い正面に礼。
To the shoreman, it's deeper.
15度ですね。10、はい。
15 degrees.
今度はお互いには目と目を見合ってお辞儀をします。
And when you bow to each other, keep eye contact. And it's a little bit shallower than the rei to the shoreman.
で今行っているのはこれ自然体です。右手で腰のところに手を添えて、ちょうど自分の小指の先に石突きが落ちています。で薙型はまっすぐ、歯が前に向いています。
So this is Shizentai position, the natural standing position, with the Naginata straight and the blade facing forward.
中段に構え。下段に構え。八層に構え。上段に構え。脇に構え。中段に構え。中段は一番基本の構えです。自分を守って相手を攻めていないといけません。
Of course, Chudan is the most fundamental of the kamae. It provides you with protection, but at the same time, is a platform for assailing or attacking your opponent.
中段から下段の構えに行くところですが、体から離さないように自分の隙を作らないようにします。はい、下段に構え。
So when you go from Chudan to Gedan, keep the Naginata close to your body so that there are no openings.
今日は全部中段から構えを持ち替えてもらっています。
So all of the kamae are going to be from Chudan today.
体から離さないというところをよく見てください。
Again, emphasize the point. When you go into a kamae, the Naginata does not leave the body.
八層に構え。これは一番攻撃的な構えで、よく皆さんが間違うというか、良くない構えとしては、歯が前を向かない、横を向いてしまうということがよくあります。気をつけてください。
So, hasso no kamae is an aggressive kamae or stance, but a common mistake that people often have is when they go into the kamae, the blade is facing out to the side instead of facing towards your opponent.
上段に構え。これは威圧的な構えですので、しっかり自分のを守りながら、普通で言えばどうもすねもみんな空いている構えですが、この威圧的な構えで自分の強さを示しています。
So Jodan again is another aggressive kamae, but in this case you're leaving yourself completely open, your lower body and your torso. So you take this kamae when you have to be very confident to be able to pull this off. And so you cannot let your guard down at all. This is a very dangerous kamae.
脇に構える。これも石突きで自分を守っています。
So with waki, you are protecting yourself, keeping your center guarded with the ishizuki.
以上で構えの紹介は終わりますが、構えは自分を守り、相手を責めていないといけないということをしっかり忘れないで構えてください。
So they're the 5 kamae that we use in Naginata. In all cases, the point is not just the form, but also the feeling of one, making sure that you are not exposing any openings. Okay, so you're protecting yourself, but at the same time, you are always ready to launch into an attack as well.
で、足なんですが、前に出る足、今の場合は左足ですが、つま先がしっかり切先の方向を向けてください。
If you look at the feet in Chudan at the moment, the front foot is pointing generally in the same direction as the kisaki.
で、かかととかかとが同じ直線上にあるようにします。
The heels of both feet are in the same line. Okay, so they're not staggered.
じゃあこれから体さばきをします。はい、送り足の前、あと、歩み足、前、歩み足、あと、開き足、右に開け、左に開け、右に開け、左に開け。今度は継ぎ足をします。正面を打って戻ります。面を打って、で継ぎ足で戻ります。はい、面を打って、今度踏み替え足をします。側面を打ちながら踏み替え足をしてください。はい、側面を打って、同じ位置で右足があったところを左足があったところを右足に行きます。
Okay, so fumikai ashi. So staying on the same spot but swapping the direction of the feet as you strike.
側面を打て、はい、すねを打て、すねを打て、はい、中段。体さばきを行いました。今度は打突をします。はい、打突として、はい、面を打て、で、次足で戻ってください。はい、面を打て、今度、はい、もう一本、面を打て、側面を打て、側面を打て、すねを打て、すねを打て、胴を打て、胴を打て、小手を打て、小手を打て、インコをつけ、インコをつけ、振り込んでインコをつけ、振り込んでインコをつけ、とても綺麗な打突ですよね。これは体から離れていないし、持ち替えをするときも、体に沿って持ち替えてるし、足さばきが、右行ったり左行ったりしていないので、とても綺麗な打突になっています。
So this is a very good example of correct striking method. The Naginata remains very close to the body, regardless of what side it's is being used to strike. The footwork is precise and compact, and always ends up in the same position and very stable.
今度は、振りを行います。
So now we'll do furi or the swings.
上下振り。始め。まっすぐ振り上げて、まっすぐ振り下ろします。
Straight up and straight down.
斜め振り。45度上から下に入ります。
45 degrees from top to bottom.
横振り。真横に振ります。
Okay, perfectly level.
斜め振り下から。45度下から上へ上がります。
Again, 45 degrees from bottom to top.
繰り返し。これはナギナタ独特の振り方です。
Okay, this is one of the characteristic moves of Naginata.
じゃあ、八方振りを16個間で行ってください。はい、始め。
Please try this at home.
斜めからきれいに入っていきます。この八方振りでナギナタの操作の勉強をしていきます。
Okay, so Happopuri, we're getting used to the body movement, how to use the Naginata, throwing it in and out, and the various angles. So this is just an exercise to calibrate your body with the Naginata.
振りは打突ではないので、しっかり大きく振りましょう。
So this is not datotsu, this is not striking, this is furi, which is swinging. So the point is to make it as big and flowing, a flowing movement.
Hey, じゃあ、服装についてちょっとお話しします。
Okay, we're going to look at the fukuso, the way that you wear your training gear now.
ナギナタは白の稽古着に黒か紺の袴と決まっています。
So, in Naginata, we wear a white keikogi with a black or dark blue-ish colored hakama.
で、馬乗り袴といって、後ろに腰板があり、それから足がちょうどキュロットみたいになって、両方に入るようになっています。
So the hakama, this particular model has what is called a koshi ita or a backboard, and these were the traditional kinds of hakama that were used in horse riding. So they also split, opens up on each leg.
太ってる痩せてるでこの間の幅が広くなったり細くなったりはしますが、あんまりブワーッと広がってしまわないような自分のサイズに合った袴をつけましょう。
Okay, so obviously it depends on your body size and shape, how much white is revealed out the side of the hakama, but if at all possible, please ensure that you get a naginata that fits you so that you don't end up with sides like this. Okay, it should be relatively defined rather than sort of really stretched out.
で、今私たちはこの腕にゴムが入っている稽古着をしていますが、ゴムが入っていなくてもいいんですが、ナギナタがこの中に入ってしまうということがありますので、あんまりここがブカブカであればゴムを入れる、もしくはゴムを入れないんであれば、このナギナタが入らないような細さのものにしてください。
So many of the naginata gis that we use have elastic in the sleeve, and that is essentially to stop the naginata from accidentally getting caught up inside. You don't have to actually have elastic here. You can have a gi that doesn't have elastic, but in that case, please make sure that the sleeve is not too big, again to stop the naginata from actually getting caught up. Okay, so if you don't have elastic, just make sure that the sleeves are quite, well, what's the word? Tight on your arm. Okay.
で、私たちは帯をしていますので、柔道のように稽古着の下に T シャツを着るということはしないで、しっかりきれいに身に沿って、つけてるはずです、稽古着を。
Okay, we have or should have an obi tying our gi or keeping our gi together under our hakama. Okay, and that's why in Naginata we don't wear t-shirts underneath our keikogi. Sometimes you'll see people who do judo who have a t-shirt underneath their gi, but in Naginata we don't, and that's the purpose of the obi.
なかなか自分の稽古着が手に入らない方もあるかもしれませんが、きっちり胸も合わさり、身に沿ったNaginataの稽古着を着るようにしてください。
Okay, it might be difficult to, you can't just go down to the local supermarket and buy a keikogi, but even if you have limited options, it's really important that you get one that's the right size for you.
で、袴もちょうどくるぶしの丈の長さになるように、あんまり短いものじゃないようにしてください。
Okay, and Naginata, hakama as well. The length of the hakama should come down to just round about your ankles or just below your ankles. Okay, so it's if possible, please avoid having a Naginata a hakama that is too short. Okay, it should be relatively long, like as you can see here. Right.
で、ここ腰板ですよね。で、袴腰っていうのがあるんですが、姿勢が良くて腰板と背中がピタッとつくと、そのことを袴腰っていうんですが、武道をするときにはいつも姿勢のいい、習慣がつきますので、普段から素晴らしい素敵なすっきりした、スタイルになります。
はい。There's a word sometimes that you hear in the dojo called hakamagoshi, okay, which means the hakama back. And what we're talking about here is we have the koshi ita, but if you have a good posture, a really good posture, then the koshi ita should sort of like blend into your back as a part of your posture and look very smart. Okay, so your appearance is really important. All these little attention to detail, that should always be considered.
以上で稽古着袴の説明をしました。で、ここにひだが前に5本、後ろに2本あります。で、このひだもやはり5行の教えとか言われますように、この、すね当てをつけて汗をかいたりするとだんだん広がってきてしまってひだがなくなったりしますので、いつもこのひだが取れないように自分のお稽古の中で、注意していきましょう。
Okay, and it's a little bit hard to see. Well, it's hard to make out the pleats, but you have 5 pleats in the front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 2 pleats at the back. And these should always be straight and pronounced, very clear. When you put borgo on, especially you put your sune out there and you sweat, gradually these pleats will start to sort of disappear. So always make sure that you fold your hakama properly and make sure that the pleats are always visible.
やはりこの稽古着袴姿に憧れてNaginataがしたいという方も出てくるぐらいですので、やはり素敵に着こなしてください。
Okay, it's not a fashion contest, but it's got to look good. In fact, there are some people who start Naginata because they really like the look of, you know, the wear or the chatso that we have. And so taking pride in your appearance is an important part of your study in Naginata.
じゃあ以上で稽古着の説明は終わります。次今度防具の説明をします。はい。今回は防具について試合の稽古はしませんが、防具についての説明をしていきたいと思います。
We're not going to do any bogu keiko today, but I just want to explain the bogu. It's just an opportunity to do some, just to refresh your memory. When we put our bogu on, we start with the tare.
タレはこの前に3枚、後ろに2枚ついているのを私たちは使います。で、このタレの紐なんですが、皆さんもあんまり気にしませんが、この紐はなるべくくしゃくしゃにしないで、きれいに伸ばしてしまうようにしましょう。
Okay, so the tare that we use in Naginata has 3 panels in the front and 2 panels in the back. Something that a lot of people sort of neglect is the cord, the tare cord, which you wrap around your body. Every time you use it, make sure that you really flatten it out, okay, so it's all scrunched up. People tend to sort of overlook this detail, but it's important to make sure that your tare cord is in good condition.
で、ここゼッケンをつけていますが、これはポケットではなくて、この中によくいろんなもの、たすきを入れたり、いろんなものを入れている方がありますが、ここへは物は入れないようにしましょう。
So this is the zekken. It is not a pocket. That's news to me. What Kiwara Sensei means by that is that often people will use the zekken to put things in, like tasuki or I don't know, eye scratches and back scratches, all sorts of things, right? So you should not put anything in the zekken.
はい。次は胴をいきます。胴は上に長い紐、下に短い紐がついていまして、ここの模様やこの胴の素材っていうのはそれぞれの趣味というか、お値段によっても違ったりしますが、これは素敵なものをお好みに合わせてつけられたらいいと思いますが、このちゃんとサイズに合わないと、私もそうなんですが、サイズに合わないとこういうふうに逃げていってしまうので、しっかり自分に合ったサイズの胴をつけたいと思います。
So door is about the only thing in Naginata you get any freedom of choice. So you can choose an expensive door or a cheap door with various colors and so on. That's fine, but the important thing with door, regardless of what it looks like, is it's got to be the right size. If it's too big down the bottom, it's going to fly up. Okay, so make sure that the door that you're using fits you perfectly.
次につけるのが、スネア手ですね。
Next, we would put on the suneate.
スネア手は今、規定に決まっているのは、この竹の部分が黒であるということです。
In the regulations now, it is stipulated that the slats of bamboo on the suneate must be black in color.
で、膝とくるぶしをしっかり守っている。で、この真ん中にありますのは足の甲だとか膝の部分を守るためにつけてるし、お店によってはついてないのもありますので、このスタイルとしては今いろいろあるかと思いますが、ただ大事なことはその人につける人の膝とくるぶしがちゃんと守られている竹のものをつけていただきたいということです。
You can see with this model of suneate that's being held up at the moment, there's a flap on the bottom which goes or protects the top of your foot, and there's also a kind of a knee protector at the top. Depending on where you buy your suneate, sometimes these extra protection is not actually included in the sune, but I recommend that you get a sune of this quality, which affords you protection on the top of your foot and your knee. And again, as I said, it must be the slats of black bamboo to offer protection.
よく試合中にこの竹が割れて、ここからこうテープを巻いたりしますが、やはり普段の稽古から稽古の前に点検し、終わった時に点検し、特に大会に出る時には自分の身を守る防具の全てがちゃんとチェックできてないといけないと思います。
Sometimes you'll see people in Shiai that maybe one of the slats on their suneate has broken, so they are backing it up with tape so that it doesn't fall apart. Well, these things happen, of course, but again, I must emphasize that you look after your borgu and your equipment after each training session that you have, and if it's broken, replace it so that when you go to a taikai, you don't have to look so unkempt. Remember, the purpose of the borgu is to protect you, so you must also look after it.
で、すね当てが終わりました。次、手ぬぐいをします。手ぬぐいはタオルではなくて手ぬぐいですね。綿でできています。
Okay.
ループがあるものではない。
Tenugui, they're made out of cotton. They're not towels.
で、つけるのを見てみてください。
So please watch how they put on their tenugui.
自分の頭を守り、髪の毛をうまくまとめ、それから汗を流れるのを防ぐのが手ぬぐいの役目です。
So the tenugui, again, this is part of your protective equipment. It protects your head, protects it from chafing inside the man. It also keeps your hair out of the way, and it serves to absorb sweat, stopping sweat getting in your eyes as well.
で、次は面になります。面は面金の上から6本目と7本目の間が幅が広いです。で、幅が広いでしょって言ってもそんなこと聞いたことありませんっていう子どもたちもよくいます。でもここから見るんです。ここら辺はみんな狭いので、この幅の広いところに目がこう行くようにして、ここを物見と言いますが、そこから見るようにします。
Between the 6th and 7th bar on the mangane is a section which is slightly wider in terms of the space between the bars. This is called the monomi. And when you put your men on, the monomi is the height at which your eyes should be. Because the monomi being slightly wider offers you a clearer view, and that's the point of it. So when you put your men on, if you put it on properly, then your eyes should be directly in front of the wider space or the monomi.
で、面紐は上からついているものと下からついているものがあります。で、Naginataの場合は顔をこう半身にしているもので、できれば上からの方が首が動かしやすいし、この顎のところの安定度がしっかりしているので、上からの方をお勧めしたいです。
With men, there are two ways of attaching the men himo. Some men have the men himo attached at the bottom, and some men have the men himo attached at the top. With regards to Naginata, I mean, you can use both, but I recommend that you use the method in which the men himo are attached to the top. The reason for this is because Naginata is conducted from a side-on stance, and by tying the men at the top, it gives you a little bit more flexibility of movement and freedom of movement.
で、中古の道具を使う方で、ここの面だれのところがすごく皮がもう柔らかくなっているものを使っている成人、大人の方ですねが、やはり疲れるとこれがしっかりしてないと、私もその喉ごときが中に入ってしまって発熱したっていうのも聞いてますので、やはりここの面だれはしっかりしたものをちゃんとつけるようにしましょう。
Also with the tsukidare, the throat protector down the bottom of the man. Often you'll see the tsukidare that's sort of like all scrunched up or bent, okay, or a little bit soft through overuse. This is actually quite dangerous In fact, personal experience, Kimura Sensei said she received a thrust that went under her tsukidare and into the throat, and she got very sick because of it. So this can be quite dangerous. It's important that you have a very stable, rigid, and undamaged tsukidare to protect your throat.
で、面をつけた後ろを見ていただきたいんですが、ちょうど頭の真ん中に、丸く蝶になった部分と、垂れた紐の長さが同じになるようにしてください。
So, as you can see from behind, the main himo is tied in the center of the head, and the himo that's left over is adjusted so that it's all the same length.
試合中に面の紐がこうほどけないようにしっかりつけてください。次は最後がコテです。で、ナイナタの場合は指が3本になっています。で、このコテっていうのは手で、ナイナタを握っていますので、一番汗でびちゃびちゃになりますし、それで悪くなったり破けたりするのところがこのコテです。だから、稽古の後にはこの手のひらの皮をこう伸ばして、キュッとこうなったまんまで乾かしてしまって、また伸びて乾かしてしまうとだんだん皮が、ダメになってしまうので、稽古の後にはいつもこう皮を伸ばしましょう。
Okay, so finally we put on the kote. Kote, as you know, is divided into three parts: the thumb, forefinger, and the rest. With the kote, after use, the tenouchi, or the leather in the palm, if it gets sweaty and wet, when it dries, it sort of goes hard, right? And then when you stretch it out again to use it, gradually the leather will get weak and start to rip. So in order to look after your kote and ensure that they last a long time, after training, when you finish using them, make sure that the tenouchi is stretched out while it's still wet and sweaty.
なるべく防具全部がそうですが、あんまり大きな穴が開いてから修理をすると修理代も大変ですので、こまめにチェックをしてそうならないようにすることと、もしくは、具合が悪いところができたら早めの修理をお勧めします。
So if you're finding, you should always check your equipment for any little holes or rips or tears that might be appearing. If you leave them, they'll get bigger and they'll become more expensive and harder to fix. So a stitch in time saves 9. Make sure you check your gear, and anything that needs fixing, fix it sooner rather than later.
で、全部つけたのがこういう格好になります。
And this is what you will look like when you have all of your equipment on properly.
一応これで、防具の説明、注意点、それから着用した姿っていうものをお見せいたしました。
Okay, so that's just a basic overview of how you should wear your equipment and look after it.